Now let's take a deeper dive into the state of the Chinese economy. For that, we're joined by Professor John Gong from the University of International Business and Economics. Professor, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
I want to start by asking you, how important was this Central Economic Work Conference, both for China and for the global economic arena? Because it comes as 2025 marks the end of the 14th five-year plan. What were some of the key takeaways?
Well, I mean, this is a Chinese economic planning, central government planning policy tradition. And I think it's extremely important. It sets the stage for the economic policies for next year. Especially so because this is the end of the 14th five-year plan. I think China's economy has a lot to do with government policy. So I think the central government's economic conference, work conference, is important in that sense. My biggest takeaway from this conference is that the stimulus package that the government is about to introduce or has already been introducing is really unprecedented. It's massive in a sense, encompassing both monetary and fiscal policies. And as a matter of fact, the phrase moderately loose monetary policy, this phrase metaphorically is representing probably the most loose monetary policy. If you look at the history of China's monetary policy history, so I think in that sense, they're really serious about boosting the economy. The more important role that the central government is going to play, especially in terms of jump-starting consumption as well as helping local governments to address their debt issue.
And sir, what do you expect as far as further monetary changes next year?
I think what this phrase really means, moderately loose monetary policy means, is that it will use the traditional monetary policy tools, for example, banks' reserve ratio, money supply, things like that, to essentially inject more liquidity into the market, to provide an environment where lending is easier, is less costly, essentially to encourage more borrowing, and things of that nature. The scale of the stimulus from a monetary policy perspective, as I said, is unprecedented in my view. It reminds me of the days in the 2008-2009 global financial crisis when the government introduced a very large stimulus package. And I think this time around, it will be even larger than the package in 2008-2009 timeframe.
Wow, even larger, okay. How well overall has China been able to progress on its path to high-quality development, including modernizing its industrial system and dealing with socioeconomic challenges at home? Some of them haven't been easy to navigate.
Yeah, well, there are a couple of angles to address this issue. I think, first of all, President Xi is emphasizing this economy has to be innovation-driven. So, the government has laid very much emphasis on, innovation, especially in terms of addressing technologies that are being subject to sanctions by foreign countries, addressing what's called the choke point issue. So I think it's really a whole of a government, whole of society drive to in the direction of innovation. And secondly, I think the government is also talking about addressing increasing the share of consumption in China's GDP. This ratio is being very low compared to many advanced economies, less than 40%. There's a lot of room for growth in that aspect. So I think, fundamentally, consumption is driven by income, by wealth, and also by consumer confidence, and on a range of issues. These are the things that the government try to address, especially I think on the income side. Now, let me also point out that there are actually signs of recovery starting from last month, from November. For example, as we actually also reported, real estate market starting to be stabilized, especially in large cities like in Shanghai, and also pricing, consumer price index has been on the positive side just a little bit. There are also other signs that the economy is starting to come back a little bit. And hopefully this trend, this momentum is going to continue into the next year.
You've just broadly outlined some of the top priorities for China looking forward, but what are the biggest challenges internally and externally to its growth?
Well, I think there are quite a bit of challenges. I think, probably the unemployment worries me most. I think at a fundamental level, the economy needs to grow, driven by consumption. Income has to rise. I think there's a fundamental problem with the structure of the labor market. We have a fairly large government, in my view, but this is actually not the right time to cut back spending on the government side. But at the same time, the labor market it just has to be structurally adjusting to the new economy, adjusting to the technological change, adjust to the challenges posed by AI. So I think other issues probably a little bit easier to address from a government policies perspective, but I think what's happening on the labor market, where we have a fairly large unemployment rate, especially among young people, that's a huge challenge, and it needs to be addressed. We have to see whether this problem is going to be addressed, or how we can address this problem. It's a bit of a challenge in my view.
Yeah, hopefully a lot of more progress to be made there. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for the conversation, Professor John Gong.
Thank you.